previous video where we introduced Strapi as a content management system, where we used it to upload images and list out the images. So that was kind of what we did in the last video. Since then, what I've also done is I have kind of updated the. So here's how it started. I wanted to figure out a way to manage the state of the. Let's open up the app. I wanted to figure. Oh, let me hide this since we're not there yet. I wanted to figure out a way to manage the state of kind of loading the images into the application and navigating, because obviously we want to add a detail page and you want to do a couple other things, so you need a way to manage that state. So I started down the path of trying to integrate a state manager, but then I said, we've used React Query before. React Query can manage the state of my content, and I can find another solution to manage the authentication state, because that's really the only other thing that I need to manage. And React Query is cool. I've used it before. It integrates very well. So I integrated in the app, and I'm going to walk through the integration that I did. I also have another video which I'll include where I spend a lot more time walking through the integration of React Query. And then at the end, we'll show how to add login and create account to Strapi. We'll create the login screen, we'll create the create account screen, and then we'll stop there. And then what we'll probably do next is we will go through the whole process of adding protected routes into the application, and then show how you can browse the app without being authenticated. But to kind of create comments and to create your own posts, you need to be authenticated. That's kind of where I'm going to go to just kind of show how to use the tool and give you some sort of framework and pattern for an app. So let's hop to first the walkthrough of the integration of Strapi into the app. Sorry, not Strapi, React Query into the app. For those who don't know, let's just read the tagline. It's a performant and powerful data synchronization for React. The cool thing is that it fetches, it caches, it updates your data, honestly, without having to create any global state for you. It gives you things like hooks that give you your data results. It does retry, it does caching for you, it gives you back your errors if errors are generated. So just a lot of cool stuff. So and it's really not that difficult to integrate. So let's hop to the integration. And there's really only two places I needed to integrate it. I needed to integrate it in the home page here. So let's go back to the home page. When we're first loading up the data, let me close this. So we need to kind of handle loading the data here. And then when we go to the add page and we add an entry, I also used React Query to support that. So let's hop in. So let's go to the hook that I created, because that's basically where everything is. So I have this hook here called the use image post, and you call this function. Since all this function is doing a query. Well, actually, let's go back to the top and make sure that I talk about how we had to set this up inside of index.tsx. So let's make sure we don't skip that. So the first thing you do, you need to set it up. You npm install React Query. Then you also get the DevTools. The DevTools is this little thing that shows up on the bottom. Then you create your query client, and then you just wrap the whole thing in a provider. So here's the query provider wrapped around it. And if you want the DevTools, you have the DevTools here. Once you do that, you're good to go. All right, so now we hop back over to home, and I got my use query client hook, and that gets me the client. And then you have this function here, this use query function that is going to return the value, and this is my hook. And so you need a unique key, which will kind of help React Query keep track of the query, and it helps with the caching and all the other stuff. So that's my unique key for it. This is just my console log to let me know in the query, so I can see that every time. Because if you remember the old app, every time I went to the home page, I was reloading the data. React Query kind of manages all that for me, and so it's not always reloading the data. We take our fetch that we had from before. So all this code was in the original application, which you can go back and take a look at. So we have our fetch, and then we kind of convert our response, and then we get our posts. And then what this trick does here is it kind of loads up the cache on the initial load by sticking all the data into the cache. And then my query just returns the posts. So we've taken the React Query use query method. We've given it a key, and then we just tell it, hey, when you want to make this query, here's what you do. Do this and call, and then return the data. This will throw exceptions and handle all the errors and everything for me. So I don't need to manage any of that. So now I have my use image post hook. And then let's go down to the app and see how I integrate it. So all I do is right at the top of this, since what we want to do is we want to query the data, we call use image post, and use image post is going to let me know if I'm loading, if I have any data, and then if any errors were thrown, right? So when I first come into home, I just call this function. You can see down here I've added this is loading statement. Is loading element. And so what it'll do, if is loading is true, you'll just see this loading image post until it's done. It'll set is loading to false, and then data will have the data, basically the results from my query that I executed up here will come back in data. All right, so let's just kind of do a hard refresh and see if we can. I don't think I'm going to be able. Let me see if I open up my DevTools, if I can get it to do a hard reload. Let's shrink this guy back down, and let's see if we can get a hard reload. It's happening so fast I can't get the loading screen, but the loading screen shows up there. I think I'll get the loading screen on the add item. But as you can see, also React Query comes with this tools to let you know when the query is stale. It gives you information on the queries that were made, so the post call that was made, when the last time was updated. You can invalidate it to force it to kind of reload that specific object, and a bunch of other cool things. You can kind of probably almost do a separate section in the video talking about React Query tools, which is not what I'm trying to do here. React Query Dev Tools. I'm just talking specifically about the benefit of it and how it manages the state for me. So now that I have it here to kind of query my data, the next place is on the add page. I'm using it also to add items. So let's hop in here. It's a little bit different here because here we're doing a mutation. We're still leveraging the use query client, but here it's a little different. We're saying use mutation. And then you pass in the parameters that you're going to need for the mutation, basically the HTTP request. And so if you remember from the last video, we needed a title, we needed a string, and then we also need to upload the file. So what I've done here is, once again, we just take the same code we had from before, but we're just kind of wrapping it inside of React Query to get all of its benefits. So we upload the file, and then we save the image, and then we return the data. And then the last thing we do here is on success, we say client invalidate queries for image posts. And so what it does is it basically invalidates that whole query, which will force the query to kind of run again. There's probably a way to make the query a little bit more efficient and not reload everything. Actually, I'm pretty certain there is. I remember reading about it in documentation, but I didn't cover it in this video. And so maybe that's a topic for another video. So now if you come down here, and we're going to use this use add image post, use add image post. And so what we do is we once again get the is loading, we get the error, but then we also have a mutation. This is what we're going to call to actually add the item. And I say mutate async because this is going to return a promise. So if we go back down to code where we had this before, you can see here we just call the add mutation photo. We pass it a title, we pass it the body, and we pass the file object that we got back. And when it's done, we'll get our response, and then we do what we need to do. When I've used this before, what I normally do is I take all of my hooks, so these data hooks here, so like this use query, this use add image, and over here the one we had on the home page, this guy, and I would kind of put them in a separate file. So this way you kind of move this logic out of kind of your front end. And it's just a lot cleaner if you can just imagine this component just having the use image and then the render stuff. It's just a cleaner way to do it. So that is kind of my quick wrap on the, let's just add a post so we can see it working. New post with React Query. And then this is the body. And then let's quickly add a file. I don't know if that's a good file to add because it's not going to give me a thumbnail. Actually, it'd be interesting to see what it does with this because it doesn't have a thumbnail. We save the image post. You saw the loading that we got. We got that loading because let's go back to my add item screen. We got the loading here because I put the ion loading in, and then React Query is maintaining this loading flag for me, so you saw that work. And then it added it. Oh, it did take, was able to take the image and convert it to a thumbnail or something that was useful. And then you can kind of see the information that it got from the last query that it did. And as I said, a whole separate video can be done on the Query Explorer and the tool down here. But that's what you get with React Query. I highly recommend you guys take a look at it. I'll include the links below. I'll include all the source code so you can kind of walk through it and see how it's working. And that's kind of the end of this segment of the video. And then we're going to kind of transition to the last part of the video, which is, as I said, we are going to integrate some authentication into our content management system here. We'll walk through how you set it up first, and then we'll actually add some code to the project here. All right, let's get ready to get on that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to log into our console, and let's create some new users, 1 or 2 users to kind of use to test our login and create account. All right, so we have our user collection type. Let's go and just create a new user. Let's come up with an interesting username. We want to make sure that the role for this user is going to be authenticated. And let's enter some basic information. Not the email address. Let's create a name. Let's add an email address in here. Let's make the name a little bit more unique than just Aaron. So we use that Aaron often. And then let's set a password on this user. Simple. Our password 1 will probably be sufficient. And then let's save it. Let's close that. We have our user. We have our password. Everything looks good. It's pretty straightforward. And now let's get to the app. Thing we want to do is, as I said, we're going to add authentication. Sorry, not authentication. Login and create account. As you saw in kind of the preview where we set this up, we had already entered a user, so let's test the login of that first. To kind of save us a little bit of time of kind of importing all this stuff, I basically created a template for a login page and a template for creating an account page. Just kind of header, footer, toolbar and stuff. Haven't even integrated into the router yet because, like I said, we want to kind of create some protected routes. So kind of for this exercise, we can go directly to our login page and it's just kind of an empty page. Let's change this title so we can tell the difference. All right. Am I in the login page? No, I'm going to create it. That's sorry. So let's call this sign up since that'll fit in the title. And then let's go to login page and change this to actually say login. Okay, so this is our login page. We're going to not get too crazy with the UI. In fact, we're just going to cut and paste a bunch of the UI because there's nothing new. You've seen it all before. So to create the login screen, we need an email and password. And so since we've kind of done this input work before, we're just going to come over to a page that already has integrated ion item, and we're going to copy over this ion item. We're going to go to our login page. We're going to go right here. We're going to add 1 item, 2 item, because we need email and password. Then we'll use our tool to kind of add all the missing imports and get everything loaded. So let's get this down so we can see the changes as they happen. All right, so we need to set email. Oh, no, sorry, set username, and then a set password. Okay, and this will be changed to password. ORD, this will be changed to password. And then we will, that stays text. And then let's go up here and let's go back to our add items, save us some typing. Where's our, we'll just borrow one of them. Then we need this guy, login. We're going to have our username, set username, and then we're going to have, let's just copy this again, and we're going to have our password, and then we're going to do our set password, and then let's import our use state, and now we have our email password. Where is our full screen class name on padding? Get that moved down, and then of course we need a button to actually do the login. So do I have a button somewhere that's already nice and neat? Yes, we have a button down here on our Save Image Post. So let's copy this and go to our login page and drop him down here in the bottom. Let's import our ion button. And then we need a function here. So we're going to say do login. That is our function. Let's go up top and const do login equals, and there we go. Let's change our title. Login user. So we have our login user. Oh, that should be username. Okay. And then let's just dump our credentials to make sure that's working. So let's say console.log username. Bop, dop, 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 dop. And let's take a look at our tools. And so we're getting, it's kind of tiny, but you can see over there, we're getting our username and password fields entered. All right, so then now here's the fun part. So we're going to integrate the Strapi API to kind of get the login done. And so to get the login done, the important thing that you need to know is you need to utilize this auth local path. And so we can, once again, borrow, I like to borrow code if you haven't noticed. Let's borrow this right here. No, we need to do a post. So let's borrow where we do a post so we can make sure we get all the headers and everything straight. So let's come over here, and this looks good because it's got fields and everything. So let's borrow this. And let's come back to our login, and inside of our login, okay, let's make this async, X, Y, and Z. And we have our username and password, and so we're going to call this login response. And then we don't have our base URL. Let's go, where's my base URL? Admin. Let's go up here. Const, go back to my login. All right, so we have our base URL, and then remember I said the path that you need to log in according to the Strapi doc is AUTH auth local. And then you need to pass it the credentials, and the credentials that it's looking for actually are called identifier, which is a username. So I'm going to say username, and I think I spelled identifier wrong. Let me copy it from the doc to make sure I get it right. Identifier, password, and password is password. SSORD, and that's all you need. We don't need this guy here. Format that. All right, so now we have our login response, and then we'll set our login response to get the results like that. And then what's the last thing? We want to do a little bit of error checking. Let's do a little bit of error checking. So let's call this login info. And we'll create a const. And then we will check our login info. So we'll say if login info dot, like, I believe when it throws an error, you'll get a status code. So basically that's what we'll check for. So if we get a status code, then we know something went wrong. If we don't get a status code, then we know we have a user. So I think that's the way it works. So let's say status code. If we get a status code, then alert. And this is a long string that I know because I got it from my testing and reading the documentation, and I'm just going to paste it in because it's very long. And this string is this. This will be the error message if you get an error back from the login. Else let's just alert user logged in. And then let's just console log out the user information. And that should be login info. Well, let's see what we get. Let's make this window a little bit bigger so when we start console logging things out, we can see what it has to say. So, developer tools. All right, slide this guy over a bit. Let's just try logging in with this and see what we get. All right, so identifier password invalid. So we're getting our error message. Now, if you remember, I created this user. Aaron Gmail. So let's try to log in with this user. Okay. And I believe the password is 123. So now my user is logged in, and I did not. User logged in, console log, login info. Why didn't I get my information? What is this complaining about? Did I throw an error? Now let's step. I think this worked. Let's see. But I didn't see any login info, so that's what concerns me. Well, let's try login again. All right, so it says I logged in. Let's step over that. User logged in. Oh, there it is. And here's my console info. So you can see the user information, email, local provider. It gives you some roles. You can define roles for them, and then you get this authentication token. And that's what we're going to cover in a later video, how we keep track of the token and how we use the token to kind of perform additional actions. So that's the login stuff. So now we have a user logged in. Next thing is let's move over and use a bunch of the same code to actually create a new user. So let's close this guy out again. We're going to do the exact same thing. As I said, I've already created this page. We've already created the path. So let's switch over to this path. So now we have our create account page. And since for create account, we need a lot of the same fields we need for login, let's just go to login and really just kind of take 99% of this page over with us. So we're going to go inside our return and take everything from the return. We'll take the whole page, copy, create account. Well, let's not take the whole page. I already have some of that stuff there. Where's my login? Let's just take everything inside of content. So we'll take all the Ion content. Let's go over to create account, content. Let's get our imports. Making sure you have a good tool to kind of handle the imports for you is a lifesaver. So just a sign up page. Let's add the class Ion padding. So we get that in there. Let's get our username information. So let's go back to login. I'm going to take these guys because we can use them. So let's go over to create account. Username, password, and then we need one other thing, which is the email address. Let's say email, set email, and then once again use our tools to add all the missing imports. So we get all the missing imports added. And now we need to, cannot find do login, because we don't want to do login, we want to do sign up is what we call it. Is that what I call this page? Sign up, yes, we're going to have a do sign up function. Let's borrow that from the login page also, because we're going to do a lot of the exact same stuff here. So actually, let's just copy the whole function. Go to our create account. Let's get up here. Rename this to do sign up. Now I would have a username, password, and an email. Username, password, email. We'll circle back around to the rest of this later. Let's get the sign up field straight. So it's username. Let's copy this username, email. Put this type here to email. Oh, set email. Username, email, password. And then let's sign up. Okay. Now for registering a user, let's change this to sign up. Then we get some consistency. So we have our sign up response, and then sign up info, sign up info, sign up info, sign up info. Okay. So for the login, we had to call this auth local, and for sign up, we call auth local register. Yes, auth local register, STR. Okay. And then we're going to pass in the fields that it needs. And so it needs interestingly enough, it needs a username. Actually, we're just going to go to the lazy way. Username, email, and password. That's what you need to sign up a user. All the rest of the stuff can say, we change the URL, we need to do this content header, the application JSON, we need to do a post, we need to stringify it, we send it up. We're going to get the results. If we have a status code, we know we have an error. Otherwise, we're the user, let's say, account created. Let's stick with it. User signed up. That doesn't make sense. Let's say account created. Okay, and let's see what we get. So, set username is not defined. What's that? Did I miss something? Oh, looks like everything's back now. So, set username, yep, set email. Do I get to set email? Username, set username, email, set email. Okay. Oh, we got our old friend Bill Stevens. For anybody who's been kind of following along with my other content, they're very familiar with Bill Stevens. So let's drop Bill Stevens up here as a username. You can say billstevens.com. And let's make sure I know what my password is. Password. Let's see if we can sign Bill up. So user account was created for our buddy Bill Stevens. Let's go see what we got back. And so here's the object that got dumped. So here's the token for authenticating Bill Stevens. Here's all the information about Bill Stevens, just like we got before. Now let's try to go to the login page and see if we can log Bill Stevens in. So let's do an empty cache hard refresh. Let's go to login. See Bill Stevens. Let's see if this works. I don't think. Oh, was. Identifier password. Right, so it's not looking for the username here. It's actually looking for, it's not looking for the email address. It's actually looking for the username. So let's put Bill Stevens' username in and log in. What? Oh. What did I say that password was? PASSWRD. So now we've logged in our new user, Bill Stevens. Let's look at the credential information that came back so we know we really logged in. See, so Bill Stevens got logged in. Here's his user information. Here's a token. And so that's what we got. So we went through, we did an overview of React Query to manage the state for the objects that we're loading into the system. We showed the modification we need to make to our existing Strapi admin app to integrate email authentication. And then we showed how to create a user, we showed how to log in a user, and then this is the last thing. Let's go actually, look at our users that we created. Look at, these are all the users, they were all created, and I think we're going to wrap it right here for this video. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. I'll include the links for Strapi, I'll include the links for React Query, and I'll include the links for the Strapi documentation on the authentication and create account. And we'll see you for the next part. Like I said, the next part, we're actually going to add the protected routes for create account, login, and then we'll also show, as I said, how you can just browse the application without an account. But I think we're going to try to add comments. If I can squeeze comments in quickly, I don't want to make the video too long. We'll show you how you have to be authenticated to add comments and you have to be authenticated to add posts. That's it. Thanks. We'll see you next time. Hopefully you're enjoying some new content. Wanted to push some React content out. Take care. Bye.